What is up, everybody? Welcome to Birds of the Round Table. Today we are talking top takeaways on that loss, that terrible loss against the San Francisco 49ers, but mostly previewing Eagles versus Cowboys, top matchups to watch, player of the game, score predictions, and much, much more. Guys, if you're watching us live, wherever you're watching, please be sure to smash that like and subscribe button and comment. This is a live show. We'll throw your comment live. We'll talk about it. Joining me, Shane at Shane Half NFL. What is going on, Shane?
It's fine, Dives. Everything's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Everything's fine. Also joining us, David at PHL Eagle News. Check out his work at PhillyCoverCorner.com and Philly Sports Network. What's up, David?
I'm doing good, man. I feel a lot more rested than the Eagles appear to be from the game on Sunday. So I'm ready to move past that, do our quick takes, and just get to this damn Dallas game, man.
Absolutely. And then save the best for last. He is the Ryan Reese at Philly Sports PSA. What is up, Ryan?
Not much, man. Tired weekend, let me tell you. One of those games, man. Just happens. Let's move on. And we got to prep for Dallas because now this next game becomes one of the most important games of the year for us, for sure.
Yep. Before we get into our top matchups to watch against Dallas, we always do just a quick takeaway. We've had a couple of nights to sleep on it. Shane, I'll throw it to you first. What was your main take from last week against San Francisco?
That's all you need to say.
Next.
Yeah, so I dive into the all 22 today, and I expected to enjoy the first quarter. Like, I was mentally prepared for what was going to come in quarters 2 through 4. I thought I would enjoy the first quarter, and I'll just tell you right now, I could make an all 22 video of Jalen Hurts in the first quarter alone when the Eagles jumped out to a 6-0 lead. And I could tell you from the first quarter alone, that's the worst game I've watched Jalen Hurts play in the last year and a half. There's a lot of criticism flying at Brian Johnson. And you can pick some nits with Brian Johnson. The number one issue with the offense on Sunday was number one. Jalen Hurts had a horrible game. We can yell about running the ball more. I'm here to tell you the offensive line was atrocious in run blocking. Since week 5, the Eagles have like a 32% success rate running the ball. Like, they had an identity as a running team last year. There is no running game this year. There is not a running game. That's why they're passing the ball. And it caught up with them because Hurts had one of the worst games of his career. So there's plenty of places to go with blame. On the offense, on the defense, you put it on the screen here. This is an F game from Jalen Hurts. This is not a C game. This was an F game. Worst game I've seen him play going back to unless we go back to 2021.
Yeah, it just looked really indecisive with the football, man. Absolutely agree. Pass protection was there. I'll throw it to you, David. What was your main take?
Aside from everything Shane just said, which I agree with all of that, they just looked tired, man. They looked fatigued. They looked lazy, effort out there. They had no energy. They started off the first quarter, and you could tell they came to play, and they were trying. And then they got down to the red zone, and that issue reared its ugly head again. They couldn't do anything after like 12 straight touchdowns down there. They kicked 2 field goals. But my biggest takeaway is, and it's not an excuse, but 3 NFL games in 13 days is a lot, and the type of teams that they're playing. I mean, they're playing the top caliber teams in the NFL these 3 games, and it just took a toll on them. I think they're just fatigued, worn out. Hopefully, a week off will help them. But I don't know. All the extra snaps that everybody's had to play, like Sweat and Reddick and everything, I think you're starting to see the effects of it. They don't have the high caliber backups, and they've relied on the top guys a little too much, and they're just worn down.
Yep. And you look at last year where they had some luck with the injuries, and I think the Niners were playing their first game in 10 days. So that was very, very evident, at least after the first quarter. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, no, David said it perfectly. They definitely just looked gassed. I mean, and especially that defense. 3 games in the span of what, 13, 14 days, something like that, right? I mean, that's a lot, especially when you have one of them as an overtime game, and they've all been, against really good teams. And yeah, listen, it was bound to kind of catch up to them. And, it also doesn't help that the offense was so inept that they were just getting off the field instantly. So the defense was on the field what felt like, I mean, I was down there, and it just, every time I turned around, it seemed like the defense was on the field. And so I'm sure they felt that as well. So I can understand why they'd be so tired and so gassed. So hopefully they kind of have a light week practice-wise, knowing how much they've played recently. And listen, it's never fun to get punched in the face. Let me tell you, if you've ever been punched in the face, you don't want to do it again. But I'll tell you right now, how they respond against Dallas is exactly how we are going to see if this team is legit or not. Because every single one of them, from Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, all the way to Kelsey, to Slay, whoever in between, need to look in the mirror and absolutely tell themselves that they were not good enough. And if they want to be Super Bowl champions, they got to be a whole hell of a lot better. And I hope they all have a real conversation with themselves about how they're going to get better for next week and moving forward.
Awesome stuff. My take, just to get through it real quick, this was actually the first week in a long time I started to sit back, maybe take off the green colored glasses, I don't know what you want to call it, and question Howie Roseman's philosophy for the first time in a while. Yeah, the signings, the pickups have worked really well. But Nolan Smith, Shane, you touched on Nolan Smith on social media. Like, he did have some good reps. But, like, when he's playing so few snaps, and when you have Nicholas freaking Morrow getting destroyed out there, when you have Eli Ricks playing in the slot, when we have said on this show and our draft shows prior, especially you, Shane, he should not be playing in the slot. Like, the depth issues are a concern. So this was the first time I actually was like, they have like that back seven. And Shane, you're going to touch on it against the Cowboys. Like, we've got major problems. Philosophy and Howie Roseman, we've got some issues that for the first time in a long time that I thought, maybe this isn't it.
Well,
maybe this isn't it.
And the problem too is you have to marry your defensive philosophy to the personnel that you have available. Now, this wasn't the Eagles' plan. The Eagles have Nakobe Dean. They've got Zach Cunningham that are both hurt. They have Avonte Maddox. They've got Zach McPherson, who are both hurt, that were going to be your slot defenders. They had Justin Evans, who was going to be your second safety before they traded for Kevin Byard. Like, it was a bad spot for the Eagles. There's no arguing that, with injuries and David talking about, the third game and all that. At the end of the day, you have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL, right? Like, we all agree with that. I mean, it's at least top 5. And you're going against a tremendously bad offensive line with the exception of Trent Williams. Brock Purdy had an average depth of target of 6 yards. It was the lowest in the NFL. The 49ers had 212 yards after the catch, which was the 7th most in a single game this season. The Eagles secondary wasn't contesting passes. Like, the defense had 1 pass breakup on the entire day. Do you know who it was? It was Jordan Davis on the first play of the game, batting one down at the line of scrimmage. Oh, wow. That's rally and tackle is a questionable approach when you have the best pass rush in the NFL. 4 of your 5 secondary players are over 30 years old, and you have CFL players playing linebacker. facing the most dynamic yards after the catch team in the NFL. I took a lot of exception with Sean Desai's game plan. I thought that was a major issue. And he's in a tough spot. The personnel's really bad. We talked about it. I talked about it. Given that personnel, I just don't think that should be your approach. Like, you got to dare Purdy to throw the ball downfield and hold that ball an extra quarter of a second. And I think Desai has done a good job of crafting individual game plans. And I see the validity of the approach. It's hard to go on 12, 13, 14 play drives. I see the validity in that approach. It's just not the button I would have pushed with the personnel that you had available.
Yeah. Kirk says the Eagles need new coaches. Real quick before we wrap this up and head into Cowboys week, Sean Desai earned most votes for who deserves most of the blame. Do you guys agree with that or disagree with that?
I put it on Hurts.
Yeah, this is a tough one, man. I think, yeah, I don't know. There's so much blame to go around. It's hard to pick one. Hurts is probably a great answer because while the offense certainly wasn't doing its thing, and neither was the defense, but I think, man, you score 14 points on those first two drives. That you never know how much that changes the mindset of that game and how much that might demoralize that San Francisco team. And again, you keep that offense out on the field for a little bit longer and give that defense a little time to breathe. And, you never know how much just simply that has an effect on this team and this game. And Jalen Hurts couldn't do it. And just like you said, like Shane said, one of the worst games we've seen from Jalen Hurts in quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah. This defense is clearly relying on the Eagles offense to own time of possession, do their job. I mean, you look at the last several weeks and their inability to play 4 quarters against the Bills, 92 plays, against the Chiefs, 74 plays. My gosh, just stay healthy. Oh my God. Like if Jalen Carter plays too many snaps and gets hurt, we have a different conversation going on right now. My man Quentin says top 4 team.
Q.
I know what he's referring to. He's going to be saying second round exit or something along those lines.
Oh, I know. There's always something extra with Q.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody have any final thoughts on Niners week before we get into the meat and potatoes of this show?
I'd like to echo what Shane was talking about last week as far as the blitzing. We've talked about it on a few weeks. For the blitz more crowd, Allen and Purdy feasted on that. Just like Shane had described, just like all the other quarterbacks who can dial this up with quick releases. I can't remember the stat, but it's something like they had 13.5 yards per pass play, I believe, when blitzed and gave up 3 touchdowns. And this team can't cover with 7 people back there, much less than 6. So they just cannot afford to do that. And they're getting burned every time they try it. So I don't know what the answer is. I mean, they're like Ryan just said, there's a lot of blame to go around. Bradbury last year had given up 2 touchdowns the whole season. This year he's given up 8. He's doubled his passer rating allowed. And it's not just him. I mean, it's some schematic, issues with that as well. But it's really bad. And they're older. And you touched on also as far as Howie Roseman might have a little, chink in the armor there. And I wrote a piece today describing basically just how they've neglected the linebacker and safety position. And you mentioned all the linebackers that we have, but they had no contingency plan if something happened to Dean. He was the only active. I mean, he's not even active. They don't even have a linebacker on this active roster that they drafted. They don't have one. None of them. They were all picked up off the wager wire. They were all, sitting at home on the damn sofa, and it's blown up in his face. And it worked before, but it's not working right now.
Davion Taylor? What, you didn't like Davion Taylor?
Yeah, come on. Sean Bradley? Come on.
Hey, well, watch it. That man's a national player.
Sorry.
I think they drafted three linebackers since 2017. Sean Bradley, Davion Taylor, and Nakobe Dean. Over a 7-year period. I mean, that's inexcusable. And if you're not going to spend money on the position, you damn sure better be hitting on some draft picks. And they're not doing that either.
Yeah, someone who, I've done at least a few mock drafts, and I talked to Shane before this, double dipping on cornerback and linebacker. The first 3 picks in the first I guess 2 days. So, all right, let's roll on to Cowboys week, guys. We're going to be talking top matchups to watch. Eagles versus Dallas. Let's get it. All right, Eagles versus Cowboys. What a massive game for the Birds, who are trying to wrap up home field advantage through the playoffs. I'll throw it to you, Ryan Reese. Where are you going with your top matchup to watch?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Eagles passing game versus that Dallas secondary. The Dallas Cowboys certainly do have a good defense, but if you're going to call one part of their defense a little bit kind of weaker than the rest, it's definitely that secondary. But, you have somebody out there like Deron Bland who is certainly, doing his thing, getting timely interceptions. Not only that, but returning them to the house. But again, I'm not necessarily saying all of it is luck, but a lot of things have to happen for a nice return, pick six. But they're just they're opportunistic, as I'll say that. But they certainly are able to be burnt, and they give up yards and they give up touchdowns. So they really do need to focus. I know we've been saying run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, but listen, this is one of those things where, you got to go to your strengths, and Jalen needs to kind of shake off that last game and start airing it out to AJ and Devontae, and hopefully you'll have Goddard, get him, involved in the middle there. Again, I'm really hopeful that this team can kind of, get back onto its, offensive, leaning on its offensive power. And, what better way than to air it out against Dallas in Dallas against a secondary that can be had. I mean, let's be honest. It's not like, we're talking about the, Chicago Bears, 85 defense here. So I think a lot of people overhype this defense just given the flash and the pick sixes and the touchdowns. But man, these guys can definitely be had. It's just, you got to be smart with your throws. You got to pick your windows. And you don't want to give them any opportunities, to get those turnovers. So, yeah, that's the matchup I'm watching. That's again, it's more or less also to, turn things around for Hurts. Having a bad game, just flush it and move on. I mean, he said it himself before: flush it and move on. Well, show us how to do it, man. Show us how to do it, because right now, you win this game, division's ours, and you have a pretty darn good chance still getting that 1 seed, given the fact that the remaining schedules for not only Dallas, San Fran, Detroit, they're all a lot harder than ours. So, I think we're all under the assumption that, oh no, if we lose another game, we're totally losing the 1 seed. Well, the other team's got to play their games too, right? It's not like they're all going to go undefeated. So all I got to say is let's air it out. Let's show this Dallas Cowboys we can match their offense with our offense.
Yeah, here's some coverage stats for the Dallas Cowboys. Like Ryan said, Deron Bland, 8 interceptions there, I think that says.
Yeah.
My eyes are bad, but he gambles a lot.
Yes.
A lot. So he can definitely be had, like Ryan said. What about you, David? Where are you going?
I went with the running game. It's the same thing I picked versus the Niners, which was not effective. I mean, I think the Bills game, Swift had 3 touches in the first half. The entire game this week, he had 6 touches. The Dallas, I think they're 12th overall against the run. They give up about 105 yards a game. The Eagles tried to stick with it versus them last time. I think they had 33 carries. Swift had like 18 for 43 yards. I mean, they weren't very effective carries, but they were trying. They didn't abandon it like he sometimes does. I think they're going to have to stick with it again, because the O-line is giving up. I think they're 28th in hurries is one of the stats and 24th in allowing pressures.
Yeah.
And the only way you can combat that is by running the ball, so they can't sit there and tee off on you. Dallas does have a tendency to over pursue, and it could, allow for some big games in the run game there. And I think that they're going to have to do that in order to get the offense moving too, because a lot of the offense works off the run, the play action, the dozens of vertical shots they like to do all game long, despite how effective or ineffective they are. So I think it's going to be a big key to the game, and I think that the Eagles would behoove themselves to just try to push their will on the O-line to the D-line as opposed to dropping back so often, because they're just having problems with it right now. It's just not working. And they don't want to stick to the short little slants that were working early in the week against the Niners. They had a few of those. Even Quez had a couple of them, for goodness sakes. And then they just abandoned it. So I think they're going to really have to rely on that, or they're going to be in big trouble.
Yep. Quinn says, I feel like this is the most important regular season game in a long time. Absolutely. This is it. This is it.
The most important regular season game in a long time just got played on Sunday.
Yeah.
This is the second most important one.
At home. Yeah,
Yep.
you're not wrong.
Listen, but just to go off of that, I disagree. Yes, it's very important. And yes, I think it's more important to see how they respond. Even if they lose, if there's fight, if they show that fight and it's a close game and they're right there and they end up losing, they end up losing. All I'm saying is Dallas has the hardest schedule remaining. San Francisco doesn't have a cakewalk either. Detroit's got to face some players. So, listen, we're all going to be tied with 3 losses if that's the case. But I'm not assuming the rest of these teams are going to go undefeated. Whereas we know we should be able to handle at least 3 wins, and if we can win on Seattle, that's 4 right there. You're telling me that 14 wins isn't going to be good enough for at least the division, if not the number 1 seed?
Yeah,
I agree. I think it is.
Yep.
Yeah, just here's the playoff scenarios for people out there wondering. So if the Eagles beat the Cowboys, they have a 72% chance to get the 1 seed. That's per the New York Times playoff simulator. If they lose to the Cowboys, that drops to a 35% chance of the 1 seed. So you beat the Cowboys, then you have Seahawks, Giants, Cardinals, Giants. You still have a 1-game lead over the 49ers. If you lose to the Cowboys, you still control your own destiny for the division.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, both you and the Cowboys would have lost to each other. You both lost to the 49ers, but the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals, and you lost to the Jets. So the Cardinals are the common opponent. You have that tiebreaker as long as you win out. So you can lose this game. You win out after that. You 100% win the division. But to get the 1 seed, you would be relying on San Fran to lose another game, which is possible. They play Baltimore, who I think coincidentally is the AFC team that's most likely to make it to the Super Bowl. They play Baltimore on Christmas, Monday Night Football. So if you lose to Dallas, you're relying on Baltimore to beat San Francisco. So that's kind of where you're at. So this game basically holds a 39% swing on getting the 1 seed. Win it, you're up at 71. You lose it, you're down at like 34.
Oh yeah, it's definitely big for sure. But yeah, it does. I mean, it goes to conference record, right? For when you're coming to seeding. So we would, again, division wise, we both have 1 loss. We would have the conference, record higher than they would. So at least we'd have that. We'd, again, be luckily, be the number 2 seed. But yeah, San Fran has to play Seattle next week. That's always a tough game. They still got to play the Rams, which again, the Rams are on the rise right now. And yeah, they got to play the Ravens. So yeah, I'm assuming they're going to lose one of those games. And Dallas, they got to play Miami. They got to play Buffalo. They got to play us. They got to play Detroit. I mean, God, they're most likely losing 2 out of those 4 games. So I'm not that worried about all that. I just want us to handle our business here.
Yeah.
It would be nice and easy, but
I think we all agree. Like it's all in the Eagles' hands.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. Rudy, let's get some comments real quick. We got a lot to hit. Then I'll throw it to you, Shane. Rudy Pooh says this team has no hitters on defense besides Blankenship. and Sidney Brown. That's it. There's just way too much softness. I agree, man. This defense needs a lot of work. This last game continues to push the narrative that this is a comparable team to the Vikings from last year. Any thoughts on that, guys?
I mean, the Vikings had a negative point differential. The Vikings weren't beating teams like the Chiefs. I was going to say in the Bills, they did beat the Bills, but it's not the same. I mean, the Eagles are coming off of a Super Bowl. You know the team is legit, and they're not clicking on all cylinders. At a certain point, like you're in week 14 and still saying we're not firing on all cylinders, maybe you're just not as good as you thought you were, and that's definitely in play. But no, the Eagles aren't going to go get blown out by the New York Giants in a playoff game. That's not going to happen. The Vikings were obviously frauds. The Eagles are a good team. They're just not 49ers level good right now.
Yep. Someone last week said that Dallas defense cannot handle motion, and who nails it? We don't do pre-snap motion.
No.
Is Goddard on his way back this week? We can assume he's back.
Yeah, I would assume so. He was limited in practice last week and pushing to play. So
yeah, he
was on WIP. He said he's coming.
Yeah, he did. He also did say that. He's like, I'm going to Dallas, and my plan is to play every snap they let me.
Yeah.
Which, let me say, there were so many times on the film that Jack Stoll and Albert O were wide open and Hurts wouldn't pull the trigger. Like, literally the first play of the game, the 49ers, not to go back to that game, they've got two safeties high. It's a light box, and you call it play action pass, and the safety comes screaming downhill, and you've got Jack Stoll running a vertical route, and he's got like 3 yards on the safety, and Hurts doesn't pull the trigger, and that's all game. He was not throwing. He didn't attempt to pass to a tight end until the last drive of the game.
Yeah, this run offense for the Eagles just, I don't know what happened to it, man. It just fell off a cliff. With the amount of light boxes the Niners threw at the Eagles, they still couldn't run. It still didn't matter. Mm-hmm. It's just really frustrating considering how dominant they were last year, man. And that was really the end of the game. After the first quarter, once the Niners started to push the Eagles around and set the edge, it was over. Rudy Poo says, my issue is Jalen Hurts pulling a 2020 Carson Wentz and holding the ball for an eternity. I mean, that's what we saw.
Seemed like that.
Boo Eagles. They can't beat this type of Dak Prescott. I mean, that was very similar to what we saw with Brock Purdy, and the Eagles didn't do it. But after the first quarter, they got to get pressure with their front four, with their four guys, and they weren't able to do it after that first quarter. So it's the same thing. Dak is so good managing through a blitz. He is elite at that. And can you get consistent pressure up the middle? And this is a weak Cowboys offensive line, and I'll tell you why in a second after Shane. Mr. Rudy Poo says losing is not an option. No silver linings here when it's against the two teams who are threatening us. Quentin says agreed. I would be okay with playing Dallas. Tough in the building, no blowouts. Wealthy Mind says both were important in the aspect of locking up the number one seed. We were not going to go undefeated through this part of the schedule. You really had to pick your poison on which game you wanted. I felt like losing to the Niners is a good thing because you didn't show them your whole hand. I feel like they're a bigger threat in the playoffs to us than Dallas. On that note, this game is a must-win. Rudy Poo says we had an advantage over the Niners last year because of Hurts' legs. He's slow as molasses now. That is a straight fact. I mean, there are times when he escapes pressure and you kind of see the Hurts of old, but for the most part, it's just night and day compared to
that knee is clearly not 100%. And while it may not be as painful for him, it's evident that he's able to run. Yeah, he's a different runner right now than he was early in the season.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This game against Dallas also locks up the division. I'm hoping there is a trilogy matchup with the Niners.
So like this year in playoffs,
I guess. The quick pass game and RPO game has disappeared. Facts.
To that point, the Eagles did not run an RPO the entire game against the 49ers. They didn't run one. I didn't remember any watching the game. I specifically watched for it on the All 22. I checked Sports Info Solutions charting to make sure they agreed with me. 0 RPOs.
That's unbelievable. I can't even. When's the last time that happened?
No idea.
Never.
That's wild. That is a wild stat. Which like kind of makes me like, it goes back to the offense and how like just the general lack of creativity, the lack of pre-snap motion. Like, why not have like DeAndre? Like, there is a ton of evidence that like when this offense is clicking, Swift is involved in it somehow, getting touches, whether that's the passing game or the running game. Why not have him out there as an option for the checkdowns and things like that? We only saw Swift for 2 receptions for 7 yards against the Niners. I don't know what they're doing, man. That's just been the general feel of this offense, even though that's not even my biggest concern. It's the defense, but like,
right.
There's just no cohesion.
Can I just ask a general question? You look at this defense, right? And there's a lot of talent on this defense. Your front four, rotational wise, you have a lot of players that can get after the quarterback. You have a lot of young talent there that you're seeing emerge and grow. The secondary, Slay and Bradbury, while they certainly have maybe lost a step, if you will, they're not bums. They're not people that should be on practice squads. Byard and Reed Blankenship, again, same thing. I wouldn't call them bums, better than your average, right? Obviously, we know the linebackers aren't great, but like there just seems to be this defense just seems to be completely lost out there, and they had have no ability to stop on a third down when it's 3rd and 12. It's like, well, they're probably going to get it because whatever reason, they just don't step up, and whether that is Desai, whether that's the players not executing it, I still haven't figured out what the main cause of why the talent isn't showing out on the field.
I think they're noticeably worse, obviously, at linebacker. I think, obviously, the pressure isn't getting home this year. And I think the drop-off with Darius Slay and Bradbury is that bad.
From last year to this year.
Exactly. That's my point.
Okay. All right.
I think a lot of it's competition. If I'm being completely honest, they're playing top-tier quarterbacks right now, and they're thrashing them. The last 3 weeks, they've given up 58% of all third down conversion rates, which is astronomical and by far the worst in the league. For the season, they're at 47.27% third down conversion rates, which is also dead last in the league. They have a problem there. And it's not just like Slay gave up 3 receptions for 30 yards this week. What did Morrow give up? I mean, it was 2 football fields. I mean, it's unbelievable. Their teams smart quarterbacks are going to find the weakness and they're going to exploit it. And that's what is exactly happening. They are beating the hell out of them on the inside of the field. They are wearing out the safeties and they're wearing out the linebackers.
Which is ironic, too, because they beat Tua, they beat Dak, they beat Mahomes, and they beat Josh Allen.
Right. Yeah. Shut out Mahomes.
I don't even think
Shut out Mahomes for half.
Bradbury wasn't even targeted this week.
Not
I'm
at
not
all.
certain of that. I mean, they are just wearing out the linebacker. Smart quarterbacks know what they do.
Yeah, I think that's more of a like Shanahan going like, aha,
yeah,
let's do that.
There's Christian Ellis. There's Nicholas Morrow.
It's like that scene from Waterboy where the kicker's looking for the guy on the onside kick. He's like, where is he at?
There's my bitch.
Yeah. That's what's happening. Yeah.
Shane, what's your opinion on this defense and why they are not the talent isn't showing up on the field?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that go into play, and you guys hit on a lot of it. Early in the year, a tremendous lack of continuity, and you're starting to get a little bit of continuity now, but you're in this brutal stretch. There's some questionable personnel things being done. I don't understand why we're taking Bradley Roby off the field to put Eli Ricks in the slot. That doesn't make any sense to me. There's some questionable play calling. There's a play in this game where it was like a 3rd and 8, and Christian McCaffrey motions out of the backfield, but he doesn't get up on the line. He just shuffles sideways out to the slot, like 6 yards off the line of scrimmage. And the Eagles run 1 double, which is cover 1 man, where they're doubling a guy, and they double McCaffrey. Like, they double the running back out of the backfield, 6 yards out of the backfield, and they leave Eli Ricks on an island trying to defend a guy out of a stack. Like, how do you think that's going to go? There's questionable things like that. I think the Eagles are playing too much man coverage. I don't think James Bradbury's as good in man coverage as he is in zone coverage. When they run man coverage, like, people want them to blitz more. Their blitz most frequently is to rush 5 and then just have a safety deep over the top and play man. And I don't like that. Yeah, it forces a one-on-one across the board, but if you just rush 4, somebody's still getting a one-on-one. In fact, 3 somebodies are getting a one-on-one, and they should be good enough to win. I don't think rushing 5 adds anything at all, and they continue to do that. It's their favorite pressure. Like, I want Sean Desai to put on some Vikings film and watch what Brian Flores is doing this year. Like, get up on the line, and if you're going to blitz. Don't do it halfway. If you're not going to blitz, bail out into coverage. I mean, the last play of the game the last offensive play for the Bills, they clearly showed pre-snap, we are sending one more guy than you can possibly block. You better get the ball out in under a second. And it was miscommunication. The blitzes they're running don't threaten that at all. It's just maybe one of our 5 guys will win their one-on-one matchup, and they will, but they would without sending the extra guys. So I think the pressure philosophy's off. I think continuity has been an issue, and then it's law of diminishing returns. You could add Aaron Donald and Micah Parsons to this team, and it wouldn't do as much as adding a competent linebacker. Like, at the end of the day, you can put the first and second all-pro team on the defensive line, and if you don't have the spine of the defense at least competent, it doesn't matter. Teams know how to negate that now. This isn't 2012. Teams know how to negate a pass rush.
Yep. Okay. All right. Let's roll on. Rudy Poo says Jalen is slower to reading defenses this year. He was so decisive last year. It's because of the RPOs. I mean, like, he just consistently made defenses guess wrong all last year. I guess it's just different this year, man. Bonzo.
There's a whole season of tape out on it too. I mean, they're not taking anybody by surprise like they were with any of that, and they've changed some of their philosophies on it. And they lost a very good play caller in Shane Steichen as well.
Nailed it. Yeah, it's a big one for sure. Desai seems like Gannon 2.0, and the back end of the D is historically bad. Yeah, like, this is very much the same kind of defense, right, as Gannon, that bend don't break defense, where they look for opportunities in the red zone, or, eventually hope that someone's going to mistake on the offense. I think where they got caught up against the 49ers, they were giving up the defense major yardage on first downs. Like, there was like 8 yards, 9 yards, 7 yards, 8 yards. Not like the Niners, whether it was through the pass or the run, especially on the edges, like, the Eagles had no answer. And once you got a Niners team that was that talented in those third and manageables with a Brock Purdy, like, they never had a shot. Rudy Poo says Seth Joyner said something crazy. Debo did kick returns and nobody wanted to lay the wood on him. This team has a different mentality. It doesn't even look like they're having fun after scoring. That's interesting. I did not see that. Wealthy Mind says, I'm going to be that guy and go there and ask a question. Do you think the type of play calling on offense and defense and the kind of effort we put out was intentional to hide our hand come playoffs? Any thoughts?
No.
And if there's even a whiff of that, I want everybody gone. That's the dumbest thing to do, in my opinion. I'm not saying the question isn't dumb, because it certainly is worth thinking about. But man, if you're really gonna think that far ahead and be like, oh well, we're just gonna assume that we're gonna no. Somebody said that about like the Kansas City game. Like, really? You're going to already plan for a Super Bowl? Get out of here. No, you got to get there first. Worry about that later. Be smart enough in that moment. Don't be smart enough now. Win your game now. Figure it out then.
Yep. Michael says there's no identity to this offense or defense. The defense per way is an organizational issue. We have complained about soft zones since Jim Schwartz. He went to the Browns, and now they are historic. I think, David, you had the tweet about their third downs. It's pretty crazy, right? Like,
yeah, they're first in the league. It's 20% better than what the Eagles are. It's pretty significant. Yeah,
crazy.
That hurts.
In the last two games, they've had a team at third down 33 times, and they've allowed a first down 23 of the 33 times. Now, two of them were fourth down conversions. So, like, your stats will say 21 of 33, but they're also 2 of 2 on fourth down. So 23 of 33, basically.
That's nuts, man. Why are the defensive backs leveraged to shade outside and leave the middle wide open? I feel like that's been the case all year. Like, I feel like they've been gutted from that area of the field. I don't know. Defensive play calling is horrible. I'll keep saying this. Bring in the defensive consultant, just like the Eagles did last year with Fangio. And the Eagles defense was top 5 last year before Fangio came in. A second set of eyes would not hurt.
It's not a bad idea.
This defense is a Sirianni philosophy. Gannon is blitzing his ass off in Arizona. This is an Eagles thing. Ooh, I don't know. Is Jonathan Gannon blitzing a lot in Arizona?
I haven't paid him any attention.
I honestly don't know.
Does anybody even watch Cardinals games?
When they beat Dallas, but no.
Nobody watched it.
I will say this. The obsession with explosive plays on offense and not allowing explosive plays on defense, I believe 100% comes from Nick Sirianni. Like, he's talked about it. He's talked about it over and over and over and over. Now, as for the whole Cardinals blitzing thing, they're not. Like, they're second to last in the league in blitz rate. So they're not blitzing. They're not blitzing a lot. But I do believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that is coming. That focal point of the offense, big play hunting, the defense trying to prevent them at all costs, that is coming from Nick Sirianni. I don't doubt that for a second.
Yeah. Rudy Poo says it's like 5 straight weeks of starting slow on offense after a bye week. It's amazing how, like, the tide of a game can shift so much, whether it's a drop pass or Jalen Hurts taking a sack or things like that. It's wild, man. Like, the Eagles put up points in their first 2 drives. Maybe there's a different narrative today. I don't know. E-Money says,
if I give one defense to the defense, since we just laid them out for 10 minutes straight here, Shane touched on it earlier. I mean, they have had like 8 different personnel groups that's been back there playing together. They have sustained injuries, and I know it's football. There's always injuries, but they didn't have a lot of contingency plans with the people that got injured here. And it's caused big problems, and it shows a philosophical issue with the way that they had built the roster. Yep. And you were too reliant on certain individuals to be there, like Maddox, who is historically hurt, Dean, who was hurt last year, and gets hurt again. And, he was healthy in college, but he's a little undersized in the NFL, and things are going a little bit differently for him here. And then you had Zach McPherson, the backup of the backup, get hurt. And you just keep going down the line. And all these undrafted free agents that are finding themselves on the field are starting to catch up to them, man.
Yep, absolutely. Great. E-Money says Eagles 45, Cowboys 10. Wow.
There we go.
We did see the return of Quez Watkins. I'm sure Shane was so excited to get a couple targets.
Yeah, absolutely. I love throwing vertical routes to Quez Watkins.
Build
the whole plane out of Quez Watkins.
Yeah, he did get a couple slants in there, but
yeah.
It caught everybody off guard, even the Niners. It was one of the most effective plays of the day. So
Michael says the Eagles need some form of veteran coordinator on defense and offense. 2004 Eagles versus Steelers was way more traumatic than this loss. And then last but not least, Bonzology says put your players in positions to make plays. The bend don't break scheme is more like the bend over and take scheme.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Nice plan.
All right. Let's keep this show rolling. We're already 44 minutes in. All right. Guys, thank you for the comments, man.
Yeah, seriously. Love it. Keep it coming.
That was great.
Yeah. All right, Shane, what's your matchup to watch? I feel like that was an eternity.
Oh my God, we haven't even gotten through them all. Jeez.
The back seven of the defense against Dak Prescott. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but like a month ago, the Eagles played the Cowboys, and CeeDee Lamb had a career high 191 yards receiving. Jake Ferguson had a career high 91 yards receiving. It's never a good day for your defense when you got two players on the opposing team set career highs. I mean, guys, what have we seen change that we expect to be different since that last game? Now you're down you're down Zach Cunningham. I don't think he's expected to play. And the Cowboys have gotten Brandon Cooks going since then. So it's no longer as simple as not that this is simple, but just shut down CeeDee Lamb. They've got Brandon Cooks going, and Dak Prescott's on a heater right now. The last month and a half is the best football Dak's played in his career. He's playing incredible football right now. And they're coming off of extra rest. They're catching the Eagles that just got blown out in their home stadium, traveling to Dallas. Like, this is going to be a huge test for the secondary. And this is the first team. Well, it's not the first team. They've played Washington twice, but the first big game that we're going to see where Sean Desai is going to be working with largely the same group in the secondary, facing an opponent for a second time. When they played the Cowboys last time, they tried to play man from zone alignments, which means it lets you get things like CeeDee Lamb in the slot matched up on Reed Blankenship, CeeDee Lamb out of the backfield matched up on Nicholas Morrow. In the late stages of that game, they adjusted and started having Slay follow Lamb, and they've been remarkably less static. And Sean Desai's caught a lot of strays from comments and stuff in this podcast. I think it's disrespectful to Sean Desai to compare him to Jonathan Gannon. He is changing his game plan radically week to week. It does not always work, but he's coming in with a specific game plan. And like I mentioned in the 49ers game, that is not the game plan I would have chosen. It was a very different game plan than what he's done in other weeks. And so I expect him to come in with something cooked up. Hopefully he pushes the right buttons this time. And if he doesn't, hopefully the third time he's got it dialed in, because this could be a potential second round playoff matchup.
Yep, absolutely. Rudy Poo says David Carr just said to start Marcus Mariota. He said something about Jalen Hurts last week. And I don't remember what it said, but David Carr is just a career loser. Like, you look at his playoff stats. It was like one game, like a 62 quarterback rating. The guy is a straight up loser. This is where we are with analysis these days. That's ridiculous.
That's clickbait. He said he's better at playing quarterback and that they'd be more productive if Mariota was behind center.
Yeah. I mean let's not use stats, because I mean JT O'Sullivan's one of the best QB guys out there, and JT O'Sullivan has a 2-6 career record. So it's less about that and more about just being a part of that clickbait generating media machine, saying stupid things for clicks.
And it works because it just got mentioned here. So he's getting exactly what he intended.
Yeah, make sure you're clicking, everybody. Click on that like button. Heyo.
Steven says Slay has been losing a step. That's being generous.
Yeah.
Slay's mentality oozing too much on this DB room. Why he praising all our enemies and letting JB get punked. Michael says it ain't about how hard you hit. My God, this is like literally one of my favorite Rocky Balboa quotes.
Yeah.
It's about how hard you hit and keep moving forward. That's like the best part of that entire movie. I think it's like Rocky
Balboa.
Yeah,
Balboa. Fantastic. My God.
After the one we won't talk about.
You just watch that scene and you just want to run through a brick wall. It's amazing. One of the best quotes ever by Rocky. Michael says the Eagles need to find that dog in them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to my matchup to watch real quick. And so much is predicated on the Eagles pass rush defensively. It's got to be the Eagles pass rush versus Dak Prescott. You look at last week or the last matchup, The Cowboys' offensive line really struggled against Jalen Carter, Reddick, Josh Sweat. Prescott was sacked 5 times. He was constantly scrambling, trying to find time to throw. Hassan Reddick in that game had 7 pressures, 4 quarterback hurries, and a sack. Sweat had 6 pressures, 5 hurries, and a sack. Cox had 4 pressures and a sack. Jalen Carter had 1 pressure and a sack. My man, Brandon Graham, had a huge clutch sack late in the game. He had 3 pressures and 2 sacks in the game. Per PFF, the Eagles' pass rush grade against the Cowboys in their previous matchup was 80.9. That was their best grade through the entire season to date. And for the Cowboys, their pass block grade of 46.9 that week was not even the worst mark this season. So the other worst mark was the San Francisco 49ers. So Cowboys really struggle with an elite pass rush. And if you look at ESPN analytics through week 13, the Cowboys don't have a single player on the offensive line, tackle or interior O-lineman, rated in the top 20 when it comes to pass blocking win rate. And the Cowboys are 18th best in the NFL with a pass block win rate of 56%. Like, you look at how much this back seven is struggling. The Eagles' defensive line has to get home, not just the first quarter like we saw against the Niners, 4 quarters. And hopefully they're rested. Hopefully they're ready to go. But it's got to be the Eagles' pass rush setting the tone. That's my matchup for sure. All right. That being said, let's roll on to our Eagles predictions of the week. All right, Eagles versus Cowboys predictions, player of the game, scores, you name it. Shane, player of the game predictions and score prediction, go.
I'm up first.
Yes, sir.
You're making me go first, man.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like you're always last.
Yeah. I didn't want to be the one to set the tone here, but I'll take Dak Prescott for player of the game, and I think the Cowboys win 31-17.
31-17 for Shane. What about you, Ryan?
So I'm going to need a second here after that.
I said last week that every analytical part of me knew I should pick the 49ers, but I couldn't pick against the Eagles after seeing him come back time and time again. Like, guys, this is the same bad spot that they were in walking into the 49ers game. Team off of extra rest. You're still beat up. You've got the same injuries you had. I mean, you get Goddard back, but I just think this is it's bad timing, bad matchup here.
Yeah.
All right,
I mean, you're right. But again, I'm hoping they're, self-reflection and they have a bit of a team meeting and talk about this, that they all got to be better. So, listen, I'm going to go, who we haven't seen in a while have themselves a game. It's AJ Brown. I'm going AJ Brown, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 27-24 Eagles because I believe in my heart, Shane.
All right. What about you, David?
I have a close score, almost exactly the same as Ryan. I did want to address one of the comments about they said Slay was not doing anything about Bradbury being on the field. But if anybody watched that pregame, Ryan, you were there. The entire Eagles team watched the Niners come running right towards him, bumping into him, hitting him. Nobody did a damn thing.
Nobody did a damn thing.
And that's kind of curious.
Was.
So, I mean, that was very telling. I mean, nobody stood up for him. It was really weird. But anyway, I am going to go with my heart as well. I think that Darius Slay is going to follow CeeDee Lamb around. I think it's going to help. I don't expect it to be as explosive as scores as we've seen lately. I had already written down 27-22. My player of the game was A.J. Brown, so now I'm pivoting to Devontae Smith. Who, the 2 touchdowns I was given to A.J., now I'm just going to say they're Smitties. So.
There you go.
But, yeah, me and Ryan are on a very similar wavelength here.
Right.
And that's not just my fandom speaking. I really do think that they are going to come out here. They were embarrassed, and I think they're going to play better.
Exactly.
And what's your score prediction?
27-22.
27-22 Eagles.
Yep. Did we just completely ignore the Niner player of the games and scores and everything? We just glossed right over all of that.
Yeah, we're moving forward. That can never happen.
Yeah, no Eagle deserves, like, what are we going to be like? Well, this guy sucked a little less than this.
I mean, like, it would be Lane, and that's about it, right? Like,
Yeah, right, exactly. Lane's the only one out a good day.
Sidney Brown and Nolan Smith. 11 and 7 snaps. Best. They played great, though.
Yeah. They weren't able to get exposed. Yeah, that was
my
great.
boys. I tweeted out at one point, there was a 3-play sequence when Sidney Brown was on the field, and they ran away from him on first down. They ran away from him on second down. They threw away from him on third down. Oh, wow. Sidney Brown goes off the field. The very next play was a 25-yard run right up the middle. And then I said, free Sid. That's my new thing. Free Sid.
I like it. Player of the game. Can I do like a combination of Reddick and Sweat? Is that okay?
There we go.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I'm down with it.
Always a dives thing to bend the rules. Sure.
Hey, you know what? He's taking anyone on the Eagles. I'll give you the entire Eagles.
Right,
defense,
take the whole line.
I still feel good about it.
All right, you said it, not me. You said it.
Man,
I feel like if the Eagles are going to win this, it's going to come from some sort of red zone turnover that was sparked by a pressure from Josh Sweat or Hassan Reddick or something like that. I feel like this is going to be a very close game. I'm with Shane. I think the Cowboys win this one. I'm going to go Cowboys 34-30. I do think the Eagles put more points on the board, but this is a bad spot. I think the defense, especially Jalen Carter's exhausted. We're not seeing that elite pass rush that we saw at the start of the season. It's just different. Mr. Rudy Poo says, we're losing, fellas. Brian Johnson is my enemy, and we should be all Eagles fans as well. Ponzology says, I wish I had a heart left. My God. And by the way, like, and by no means do I think the Eagles lose this and like the season's over. Like, they're fine. I feel like they're fine. It's just a buzzsaw.
I would just like to say the last time that the two of you went against the Eagles and the two of us stayed with our hearts.
I feel like
was one. So
I feel like that was on purpose.
I sure hope it was.
Was that the Chiefs game? Is that what
I think so? I think it was.
That's the Chiefs game.
All I want to point out is that this is all Quentin's fault. Quentin never picks a side, and he picked the Eagles last week.
Yeah.
It is good to see that he's back to not picking a score. So Eagles win confirmed.
Yeah.
Let's go, Q.
He learned from his mistakes. We held him accountable. We get better.
Yeah. Steven says, I have given up on the BJ drum. I stopped beating him up a few weeks ago. It's just what it is. Man, some defeatist attitude here going on tonight. Sidney was responsible for leaving his zone on that first run for 30 or more by George Kittle. Per Bonzology, Rudy Poo says, player of the game will be Swift if we win. That's a great one. But I feel like we've been nominating him so many times. He just doesn't get the ball.
Nope.
Doesn't get the ball across 4 quarters. Yeah. Ertz should be way more decisive this game. He will be player of the game. He has to be. Rudy Poo, if we win, Swift will play a big role. And then the Eagles have to go back to what they were in the mid-2000s. That's never going to happen. Sorry to burst your bubble, but the Eagles want to move the ball through the
Well,
air.
it's not the NFL at all.
And nobody blitzes like that anymore.
Is
Brian
not-
Flores does. He would like a word.
He's bringing college concepts. Everything he does is a college concept.
Yep. All right. That being said, that wraps up our show for tonight. This is probably the longest Birds of the Roundtable in quite some time. To be fair, this is like a huge game, so I'm happy for it. The comments were amazing, guys. If you're watching us live, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're watching. We're streaming across multiple platforms. Just your comments mean the world to us. I just want to say thank you. Birds of the Roundtable is every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Let's do Around the Horn. Final thoughts on Eagles versus Cowboys plugs. Time's yours, David. You lead us off.
One thing that we didn't touch on at all was the Dom versus Greenlaw exchange. And I have to tell you, I was really sad. My heart hurt a little bit that Derek Barnett wasn't on the sideline anymore because, boy, that would have been one explosive sideline melee. I'm really sad we were all robbed of seeing that moment. But I wrote a piece this week about Howie and the Eagles thinking they had found the cheat code on how to build defenses. You can find it at Philly Sports Network, or it's on my X handle at PHL Eagle News. But other than that, go Birds.
Go Birds, baby. Ryan, you are up.
Real quick before I start, can I please have the last Mr. Rudy Poo comment on the screen, please? I don't need to say anything.
I can show you some pass blocking reps for both Swift and Gainwell. That's exactly why.
Yeah, it's all you're right about that.
I don't care.
I don't. Not to ruin your final thoughts, but there was one play I was so impressed by Gainwell. They were like trying to run a play action with a puller, and it was Cam Jurgens pulling to the left, and he was supposed to kick out the D end, and he tripped over Jason Kelsey's feet, and Kenny Gainwell just aborted the play fake and went and hit the defensive end and gave Cam time to get there. It was one of the more impressive pass blocking reps I've seen from the running back. So that's why he's on the team.
You're right. But as a running back, you should be able to run the ball.
He got a touchdown against Dallas last time we played him. So who knows?
Anyway, I digress. Yeah, listen. They got punched in the face, and just like any time you're out on that playground and you get punched in the mouth, it's what you do next that matters. And listen, I'm not the type that's going to go back inside and go cry to my teacher. I'm going to go over and I'm going to punch back. So I hope this Eagles team has that same mentality, that same playground mentality, and they're going to punch the Dallas Cowboys in the mouth because this is their season on the line right now. I know it's not technically, but that is what it is because this is everything for how this team is going to look and going to do in the future in the playoffs. Because if they come out and they're weak and they're slow and they're soft, I mean, they might as well pack it in, right? I mean, listen, yeah, they'll make the playoffs. Yeah, they'll win a game here and there. But listen, we're not trying to just win a game. We're trying to win a Super Bowl here. So let's act like it. Let's punch the Dallas Cowboys in the mouth. Outside of that, follow me right here on X, Philly Sports PSA. I'm all throughout the week. I'm on shows here, there, everywhere. According to some, I'm at Walmart hanging out, just talking Birds. But yeah, you can always find me at Edge of Philly Sports, doing some shows, doing draft shows with this guy, Party on Broad, etc. So, and please do yourself a favor. Make sure you follow all these gentlemen because their Twitter game or X game or I guess I shouldn't call
the X Games.
Yeah, I shouldn't call it the X Games. But anyway, they will provide you with not only entertainment but education throughout the day, especially about that bird. So please follow everybody here.
The Riley Cooper in the chat comment is so funny. It's so funny. I'm not showing that on here, by the way. Shane, you're up, man.
Yeah, Ryan mentioned the whole getting punched in the face thing. I was definitely the kid that ran to the teacher instead. That's why I sit at a desk and talk about football players instead of playing football. And I'm small and slow and all those things. But
to be fair, you're probably, I don't know how tall David is, but I'm probably the shortest one here. It's like probably you and Ryan and then me.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm 6 foot even.
Yeah, I'm like 6'3".
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ryan, I think it'll be Ryan, Shane, David, me.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that. But I don't know why I said that, but there you go. That's my window into my personality. If you want more of a window into my personality, you can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHalfNFL. Check out my X Games. Even bigger window into my personality is I posted like 60 clips from the game today. And I did so while recording the Spotify music I was listening to. So you can see what kind of music I listen to while I break down film. What's cooler than that? Hit that follow button.
It's exactly the music you would think someone who ran to would listen to.
Your big mistake, Shane, is like it should be Eagles and Titanic music every week. Like I need that every single week.
Yeah.
No.
All right, guys. Quick thank you everyone for watching. The comments were amazing. This is by far the longest Birds of the Round Table in quite some time. Everyone here is by far some of the best Eagles content creators there is out there. Give everyone a follow here. We break this down every Tuesday night at 8:00. We'll be back next week talking Eagles versus Cowboys and then previewing Eagles versus Seahawks as we always do. He is Shane Half on Twitter, at Shane Half NFL on Twitter, at Philly Sports PSA, my man Ryan Reese, and then David at PHL Eagle News. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Stay awesome.